Hey WLRN listeners, here I am live streaming from Madison, the public library downtown, and we've got a press conference today. So thanks for tuning in, and later on we'll make this into a YouTube video. And we do actually have some press here today from Madison. TV News 15 is here, so that's really exciting. And Miriam Ben-Shalom organized this press conference in her capacity as a co-founder of Hands Across the Aisle Women in Coalition. And we've got three speakers. We've got Mary Jo Walters, Miriam Ben-Shalom, and Emily Olivet to speak about the Madison Public School system and what's going on with the culture and the laws and the policies around transgender identities and gender identity. All right, thanks. So we're going to get started. And should we start with?
You can if you would.
All right, we're going to start with Miriam Ben-Shalom. Thanks for tuning in.
Good morning, gentle sisters and radical feminists. I'm Miriam Ben-Shalom. I'm one of two co-founders of Hands Across the Aisle Women in Coalition. Kaylee Triller-Harms and myself founded the coalition a couple of years ago when we realized that we needed to start cooperating and finding common ground and working together on the transgender issue. So we do, and to date, we have always been able to be civil with one another. We understand the ground rules, and there has been little to no dissension. And we have over 200 members nationally and internationally as well. Hands Across the Aisle is a coalition of both progressive and liberal women. We are not Republicans or Democrats. What we are is adults who are concerned about the welfare and safety of women and children. We are especially concerned about the casual and cavalier way the human rights of women and girls are being set aside because of their biological sex, which is not the same thing as gender. We are not here today to say that transgendered people should face discrimination. We are not here to say they ought not to exist. We are not here to say they ought not to have the same rights as all other citizens. Nor will we say that males who identify as trans are all criminals. That simply isn't true. This is not about transgendered people against non-transgendered people, although it may look that way. This is about male entitlement and power being used to subjugate women and girls and deny them any human rights or place at all in this society. Men do this without any sort of consent, our consent. We are here today to speak up about what is appropriate and right. We are here to ask why common sense and decency has not been addressed. We are here to ask why the privacy of elementary school girls means nothing when a male who identifies as trans decides that walking down the hallway is simply too much. We are not saying that Vica Steel, formerly Mark Busenbark, is a criminal or a pedophile. Let's be very clear about that. We are asking, however, if it is appropriate for an adult, intact male, no matter his presentation, to be in an elementary girl's bathroom when there are other places nearby for him to use. Giving him that right does open the door for other males to claim they are women and claim access to that restroom. It should be asked, why must it be girls who must carry the burden of this man's desires? And what might happen if other males want access? How many girls will have to be violated? When is enough enough? It is obvious that this is about much more than having a place to urinate, since Steele, Busenbark, is not disabled, although a disability would not necessarily give him the right to use any bathroom he chooses. This is about saying that gender is more important than biological sex, that a man's demands are more important than young females' right to privacy. If this is supposed to be for furthering diversity, then why not teach boys that to be different is also okay? One cannot imagine that an adult male, no matter his presentation, would be fearful in the boys' room or to use a urinal in the presence of boys or to put up makeup in the presence of boys. Why is it only on the backs of females? The trans community likes to maintain that there never has been an assault by a male identifying as trans on a biological female. The truth, however, is quite different. There is a clear pattern of male violence against females. I have some links at the end of this presentation that you can follow if you wish to see very clearly that there are vetted events of males assaulting females in bathrooms. The trans community also claims that men who assault and claim they are women are not real transgenders. How can one tell who's a real transgender? It defies logic because it's self-identified. Allowing one opens up the door to others. Is this wise? Steele Busenbark says that girls only use the bathroom, begin quote, for peeing and adjusting makeup, and that represents, begin quote, her personal experience as a transgender woman. Well, he's not a female. He is transgender. He was not raised as a female and maintains his male privilege by insisting that all must do what he desires. He has no idea how young girls feel about their bodies and the changes they are going through. He knows what a male body goes through, but that simply is not the same as a female body. Most young females, and especially young girls, are not going to chat and talk with an adult present, especially a male. One must also ask how he knows exactly what girls are doing in the bathroom. Did he check to see if they were peeing? We also wonder why the school has not paid attention to the concerns of parents or seen fit to ask why Steele Busenbark needed to fully explain his coming out. Steele's coming out video to the whole school is an example of the district's harmful policies. In a related lawsuit dealing with parental rights, 14 parents are taking the Madison Metropolitan School District to court to challenge the MMSD policies that enable children of any age to change their gender identity at school without parental notice or consent. It also outlines ways in the Madison schools are deceiving parents about their child's health and upbringing. For example, by using different names or pronouns in front of parents than they do in the classroom. Children are smart, and they see these contradictions. Is that an education, teaching children to lie and lying to parents? It is time for common sense, ladies, to make a comeback. It is time for logic to reestablish itself in the schools. It is time to stop conflating gender with biological sex. They aren't the same no matter what anyone says. Gender is what society determines for the behavior of the members of that society based on, are you ready? Are you ready for this? Based on their sex, their biological sex. It is time to put a stop to this sort of indoctrination of children by the trans community, big pharma and big medicine. As a former teacher, I can say that it really is time to let kids be kids and let them learn, but not be forced to be unwilling, unknowing participants in the circular games involved with trans ideology. It is time to stop being woke and wake up to what is being foisted upon children, the most fragile and easily broken of all in this society. If the Madison Metropolitan School District really believes it's safe, respectful, and welcoming environments, and believe that the safety of schools are those that foster a culture and climate of support and respect, isn't it time that young females, also known as girls, are also included in that paradigm? Hands across the aisle, Women in Coalition stands with the parents who believe that an orthodoxy is being forced on their children and that the Madison School District is not paying attention to their complaints. And on a personal note, as a teacher of 37 years, I wonder, what goes on in the mind of a man who thinks that because he goes about in woman-faced, that gives him the right to force his system of beliefs on young children? That isn't what teachers are supposed to do, is it? It is hands across the aisle position that parents should not have to have their rights abrogated by school personnel, and that schools should never be pressured to force girls or boys to share bathrooms and locker rooms with members of the opposite sex, much less with an adult. We are holding this press conference to speak out against any support for Vica Steel, formerly Mark Busenbark, on this issue. It appears that the MMSD is employing policies that undermine parental rights and are not teaching children about proper boundaries, both private and public. Hands across the aisle asks for a return to education, not activism based on false science, female erasure, and the willful violations of student privacy and the denial of parental rights. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, Miriam. That was wonderful. This is Thistle, and I'm going to introduce my friend Mary Jo Walters. She is a parent with children in the Madison Metropolitan School District. Welcome, Mary Jo.
Hi, thanks for being here today. As a parent, I wanted to tell the Madison School District to stop brainwashing our children. This bathroom issue is the tip of the iceberg. One reason for gathering here today was sparked by the action of one male teacher at Frank Allis Elementary. His request for access to the girls' bathroom has exposed how trans works to take away, in this case, girls' rights. Male teachers shouldn't be in girls' bathrooms. Girls and boys need private, separate lavatories from adults in schools. This is a district-wide issue. I called the Madison School District, and the members of the school board were largely silent on the issue of if they would protect children. I heard back from one school board member who supports the male teacher and who said the teacher wanting access is a woman. This is a lie. A man is not a woman just because he identifies as transgender or he feels like it deep down inside. Woman is not a feeling. Being a woman is not a costume. Woman is an adult human female, and everyone in this room knows that. And I would wager that all the adults in the schools know that women are adult human female. Everyone knows this fact, yet these lies are permitted to spread in our schools. Why? My friend Thistle Pettersen was pushed out of her job, threatened with violence, and banned from the area venues in Madison where she used to play music with her band Thistle and Thorns, because she interviewed feminists critical about gender identity culture and laws on WLRN 89.9 FM. I hope the trans mafia doesn't come after me for speaking here today, but the situation is so dire, I must speak for the sake of my children and also for all of our children. This school district is filled with parents that have drunk the trans Kool-Aid. I will focus now on my youngest child's school because this is where it is the worst. For years, 2 separate principals there have sent out newsletters that announce the partnership with the Human Rights Campaign, Welcoming Schools. Their stickers are throughout the school. The school has a gender-neutral bathroom, and all the teachers display their gender pronouns at the classroom doorways. In the 4th grade, they are taught gender identity as part of sex education. Tomorrow, a full indoctrination into trans will take place statewide with this school taking part. The book featured in the National Storytime is Young Adult Poster Child of the Transition Movement of Children, Jazz. I'm sorry, it's Jazz. By email, I wrote the principal, my son's teacher, and the school board to cancel the story time. My son, who is 11, will not be at the story time. We opted out, and I had to teach him that trans is fake, boys can't become girls, and he said that's just what you think. And I let him know that that is a fact. He doesn't believe me right now, and that's true of the adults too. When I am critical of trans on Facebook, I am accused of hate speech and censored, like when I recently tried to post about the trans teacher who wants access to the girls' bathroom with the teacher union's support. Madison trans ideology is worse than the coronavirus because everyone here has been infected. My niece in Ohio is 13 years old and has no such teachings at her public school. I also spoke with the second in command in the Madison School District, and he talked to me about the logistics of the bathrooms in general, and he explained that the older buildings have less staff bathrooms, and an upcoming referendum would address the need for more bathrooms for adults. There is no district-wide policy about adult bathroom use. In previous times, staff would regularly use student bathrooms, but the times have changed, he said. Well, thank you for listening. This is a wedge issue, and I'm hoping that we can make some positive reversals to the current culture and policies in Madison.
Thank you. Very good. Next up, we're going to have Emily Olivet. She is visiting Madison from Milwaukee. Thank you for coming, Emily.
Thank you, Thistle, for having me. Thank you, Miriam, for organizing this. Madison has long been a city championing diversity in the name of progress. But what is an interesting effect to consider is whether diversity can come to be so atomized. There is no longer a standard on which to answer the question, what is right, what is moral? Manipulations claiming liberation for people are a stacked effort, and this is one such effort. Sometimes there are incidents that call our attention to what is happening in the world we live in, that we find ourselves facing a choice between respecting an individual person or protecting groups of vulnerable demographics, women and children. And why should we be faced with such a choice? Why do we live in a world where it is a choice at all? In this case, we can step back, look at all the pieces, and see what is happening when one person seeks to get their way at the other's expense. No one is saying transgender or gender nonconforming people don't deserve safety. But safety is a very useful facade behind which many hide. This is especially so if done by manipulating language feminists have used to name which biological sex danger comes from and why. Importing this rhetoric to uplift male sexuality by denying the reality of biological sex has made this world a very dangerous place to be in right now. The manipulations continue. A stereotype of women, stating how females just use bathrooms to pee and fix their makeup, is used by Vica Steel, Mark Busenbark, to promote male access to private spaces. On top of this, a claim that a longer trek to staff adult bathrooms is used to bolster Steele's desire to access student bathrooms. He takes note of aged infrastructure and how he can discount female and student safety in the name of what will save him a trip down the hall. Yet another twist to this story. Tim Lamont, the Madison Metropolitan School District Public Information Officer, has clarified that adult staff members are given a choice of which adult bathroom they use based on the gender with which they identify, unquote. Meaning that already this school allows the two sexes to use whichever bathroom is desired at will. Lamont recognizes that adults who refrain from use of children's bathrooms is a best practice for safety purposes, but this is to add to another vapid statement of his when Lamont was asked if the value of female-only spaces protects the safety and dignity of girls, and he shirked the question, stating, begin quote, MMSD and all of its schools are committed to providing all students and staff with a safe, respectful, and welcoming learning environment. It is our belief that the safest schools are those that foster a culture and climate of support and respect. That Lamont covers for Steele in this way, by refusing to concern himself with privacy needs specific to female bodies, is why we have to live in a world where we have to make choices between respecting individuals and protecting the vulnerability of women and children. Two men with social and institutional power in and over this situation are both protecting the public from what thoughts go on in the imagination of those who seek access to female privacy by denying that females deserve privacy at all. Men who can control the narrative of this situation are going to make sure that no one has a deeper reason to ask questions because they are promising to look out for public safety. Where we see the words all and inclusive and rhetoric around safety, we center our thoughts on idealism, a private belief in the goodness of all people without a true measurement of the realities of crime in this world. This is because goodness is dictated by what is publicly viewable. But the reality of human nature is that it finds derivatives of itself in more private realms. To gain a privilege that requires children, and especially female children, to share their privacy with a transgender adult is to revel in an abstraction we call gender nonconformity, with no thought to physical risks or emotional consequences for children, especially female children. I wonder what is in the imagination of the next steps concealed in the mind. While policymakers are still publicly working out how to settle the score on gender dysphoria being used as a vehicle to demand special rights, privately abusive efforts to enter the domains of others are already full speed ahead. The facade here is safety. We are promoting public safety under the guise of stunning bravery, rather than seeing a Madison Elementary School working to proactively prevent what develops in the imagination of those seeking license to express behaviors portrayed as gender nonconformity. This is accomplished by way of public policy already catering to gender individualism and its threats united in a war against women and children, so that men feel free to boldly present themselves and be celebrated for it. Much as Madison's liberal politics have always largely buoyed the Progressive Party in general across the nation, we see how they yet again take a lead in progress, as this case is a precedent for going past not just the debate on erasing the sex basis for separation of bathrooms, but it is a demand to go beyond female spaces to children's spaces. This is a case where the envelope isn't just being pushed, it's being publicly declared as ripped open, and damn whoever's privacy and autonomy must be sacrificed to be so individually stunning and brave. This is while the public is applauding a veneer of bravery, while the real victims are always and will be lost to public awareness. What Madison could choose to do in this very instance is begin to take a different lead and turn around before a new kind of precedent is set around shared bathroom use between adults and children. We can always choose how we write the endings of our stories, and this is a moment in which Madison, already with so much ability to stake out what truly progresses, can perhaps consider stopping and consider what the world really looks like beneath false appearances. Thank you.
Hi everyone, I've decided to speak. We have another half an hour, and I'm feeling like I want to talk to you. I want to talk to whoever will listen about this issue, because there's so much silencing that's happening. There's so much censorship that's happening. Again, I want to thank Madison News Team 15 for being here, because largely we're ignored when we try to talk about this issue. We're also shunned and ostracized and basically relegated to the second-class citizen status that women have always had in this society. And so it's really amazing to me that we're even here in the public library today being able to do this. And guess what? All of the women, or all of the people in this room, are women, and including the camera woman from the TV station. It's just amazing to me, like, examining this issue and being a part of it for so long, how much of a women's issue, a women's and children's issue this is, and it just gets ignored. So I have a speech. My name is Thistle Pettersen. I'm a longtime teacher of children through various after-school programs at elementary schools in Madison, in the public schools. I've also been a Spanish teacher in our community here in Madison. I'm here to express my strong concern for the children of the Madison Metropolitan School District, if the district allows for adults to regularly use the children's restrooms. It's not hateful, intolerant, or transphobic to believe in the segregation of adult and children's restrooms in the schools. Rather, this age segregation is to protect Madison's children from potential harm by adults who have power over them by virtue of being adults and by virtue of being teachers and staff at the schools. This just seems like common sense to me. Of course, sometimes an adult may need to enter a children's bathroom at a school for supervising reasons, but no adults should be using the children's restrooms regularly to relieve themselves. As a teacher, I am familiar with the saying that we want to set our students up for success before giving them assignments and projects to complete. What that means, for example, is that you don't just play a video that's in Spanish with no subtitles to students and expect them to catch on and be able to understand. Rather, you provide them with vocabulary and a context for understanding the video before you show it. You provide students with the tools they need to be successful in answering questions in Spanish before you ask them the questions. In the same way, allowing for adults to use the children's restrooms in the Madison Public Schools does not set up the students nor the adults for success, but rather puts both the adults and the students at risk of unwanted behaviors happening in the restrooms. It's no secret that in our society, in this age of the internet, there's a large sector of the population that is addicted to pornography. It is well known that sites like Pornhub regularly use footage of girls and women defecating and urinating in restrooms to attract porn users to their site. Since the use of pornography is rampant in our society, allowing adults to use children's restrooms creates the opportunity for porn-using adults to potentially give in to their temptations and do something that they regret. I'm not saying that all of the adults or even some of the adults working in the Madison School District are porn users, but rather that pornography is readily available for free on the internet, which increases the possibility of porn use by anyone. In a 2018 Psychology Today article called "When is Porn Use a Problem?", the author cites a 2016 study that shows that participants who are using pornography on a regular basis report a loss of control in their daily lives and a feeling of distress and dysfunction. This same article reports that men are far more likely to use pornography than women, and that as use increases, feelings of desperation and perceived lack of control increase. I do not know the science teacher at Alice who wishes to use the girl children's restroom at the school, so I can't say that I believe this teacher is a threat to girl students. But I do think the policy of the schools needs to be changed so that neither this teacher nor other teachers are allowed to use the children's restrooms. Having this rule put in place at all of our schools will reassure parents and keep our Madison children safe, teaching them appropriate boundaries between adults and children, and setting up everyone for success. In addition to speaking about the potential harms I see MMSD's current bathrooms use policy causing, I would like to touch briefly on how transgender activism has impacted me and the progressive community here in Madison. I used to play a regular show with my band, Thistle and Thorns, at the Crystal Corner Bar in Madison on a Monday night once a month. I also used to regularly book benefit concerts for environmental causes and play at them at the Wilmar Neighborhood Center. I am banned from performing there at both of those places now. This is because I have spoken out against what I see are the harms of trans activism to society, especially towards women and girls. Local trans activists successfully convinced the Crystal Corner, Wilmar Neighborhood Center, Boss Meadery, and other venues in Madison to blacklist me and my music that is unrelated to my political views of how gender works in our society. It is true, I am a feminist. But since when did being an advocate for the rights of women and girls become something our progressive community will not support? Not only am I blacklisted as a musician in Madison, but I no longer can easily engage in the environmental and anti-war activism I used to be able to do because I refused to state my preferred pronouns at activist meetings, and I have spoken in favor of women and girls' rights on local community radio station WORT 89.9 FM. It's hard to believe that this is true, but I stand before you today to agree with you that it is hard to believe that this level of ostracizing and adult bullying has happened to me in Madison on account of speaking out in favor of the rights of women, girls, and lesbians. The L is the letter that is too often ignored in the LGBTQ community. The rights and protections for lesbians are being superseded by the interests of the T. But I'm not here to dwell on what has happened to me personally and to the Madison progressive activist community due to trans activism, but rather to defend the rights and protections of students who are children from the potential harms of allowing adult teachers and staff to use the same restroom facilities in the schools. Trans activists like to make it seem like this issue is complicated and that feminists are not really part of the progressive community. But the truth is simple. There is no hatred or bigotry in age-appropriate bathrooms in our public schools, and there is no hatred or bigotry in women designating our boundaries in this world that too often allows for girls' and women's boundaries to be violated. Thank you. Does anyone want to open? Okay, go for it.
One last thing I'd like to say. On behalf of Hands Across the Aisle Women in Coalition, I would like to say thank you to the library. As a teacher of the English language for 37 years, I think libraries are sacred space, and I think librarians are keepers of the word, allowing diverse opinions to be aired in a civil and disciplined way. My hat is off to the library for allowing us to meet here today, considering that in other cities and other places, libraries were not very friendly or very open or very accepting, except to men in woman face and women in man face. Hat is off to the Madison Library.
I have some questions for Miriam.
Ask away.
Off camera or?
I'm fine.
Okay. So where were you a teacher for 37 years?
I taught for 28 years at Milwaukee Area Technical College in the Prepared Learner Initiative program, which was for people who wanted to go to college but whose skill level wasn't exactly where it should be. I also taught in West Bend in a alternative program for troubled students.
And so you would consider yourself a feminist?
Absolutely, a radical feminist.
Can you only be a feminist and pursue feminist agendas if you are only biologically a female?
I would say so, because feminism for me centers on women. It is for women by women. It's for us by us. Can men be allies? Yes, they can. But I think true feminism does not acknowledge that a man can necessarily be a feminist. I just don't think so. But that's my own personal opinion. As a radical feminist, I center on women, whole and complete, and their civil rights and their ability to maintain and be maintained in society. I stand for the protection of children. I am averse to the Joseph Mengele experimentation that's going on in children by Big Pharma and Big Medicine. I think that's what a feminist should do. I don't think it is my place to be affirming autogynephilia.
Do you believe that, do you believe in the concept of gender as separate from sex?
Absolutely. Look, every cell in my body is XX, okay? Would you consider me gender conforming?
No.
Okay? I'm not gender conforming. I happen to be a lesbian, okay, in case you were wondering. Gender is an artificial construct. Do you know of any man or any woman who 100% adheres to what this society expects gender to be? If you do know somebody, I'd like to see who they are. It's impossible. If a woman mows the lawn, she's gender non-conforming. If a woman tunes up a car, she's gender non-conforming. Okay? Gender is artificial. I would rather there wasn't any gender at all, because I think gender, hampers us in becoming who it is we wish to be. If a man wants to wear a dress, that's fine with me. I don't care really. But he doesn't have to say he's a woman, and he doesn't have to trample on my civil rights, my privacy, or violate my boundaries. If these males identifying as trans were really concerned in terms of their gender presentation about violence, they would be going into men's bathrooms and teaching men that it's okay to look different and be a little different. But they don't do it. They place it on the backs of women. You wonder why?
conversation and your statements are not at all hate towards transgender identifying people. So do you think there's a way, in regards to the bathroom situation at Madison schools, is there a way to pursue the feminist agenda, but at the same time also meet the demands of transgender identifying people? Can we be both? Can you do both?
Why would they have to have special rights? Let me turn the question back to you. Merely because you wear a dress, okay, and wear makeup and maybe a bad wig, does not mean you're a woman. How is it that the privacy and boundaries of females in this society are not taken into account? When I taught at Walk Area Technical College, I had to go down 2 floors in order to go to the bathroom. Gee, I didn't complain. You know, this is pure men's rights activism. They want what they want when they want it, and they don't care who they trample on to get it. There are adult bathrooms, so somebody has to walk down the hall or even go down a floor. Gosh, Rudy, Mr. Bill, that's just really too hard. I don't think transgender people should have any more rights than anybody else, and I don't think their rights should supersede the rights of women and children. I think they're trying to erase us. I've seen it too often. I've seen the threats. I mean, I personally was told to crawl back into the oven where I belong as one insult. Well, I'm not going back into the oven, and I'm a big, strong woman, and if anybody wants to argue with me, just bring it on. I have nothing to lose.
Do you see that in other areas of society?
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, are transgender identifying people, are they victims in other areas of society?
Why don't you take a look at the statistics, okay? In 2018, over 1,600 women were murdered, okay? That's the ones we know about. In 2018, I believe it was 27 trans people were killed. Now, any murder is an abomination, all right? But compare 1,600 women to 2,700 males identifying as trans. They were also primarily in prostitution, which is risky in and of itself. We don't know how many women who are prostituting themselves are murdered, okay? So we don't know of any particular direct crimes of murder because an individual was transgender. It's not necessarily very clear. I don't think they're victimized. Males identifying as trans have more rights than I have right now. If I were still working, I could be terminated because I'm an out-front lesbian and I speak out on what I do. Let a trans person speak out, like this Vica Steel, and he gets to have the right to say he wants to use which bathroom he wants to use, and he doesn't get fired. Victims? No, I think that a great many of the transgender community are victimizers.
So in this room we are like adult women.
Mm-hmm.
What do you know about the experiences of young women who go to these Madison elementary schools? What do they say? Do they feel like they're victims?
I tried calling the school and I did not get a response. So in all fairness, I can't answer the question honestly. I think it would be interesting to go to that school, have the media go, talk to the teachers, talk to the students, and see what they think. I mean, you're also aware that on the 27th of February, that's a National Transgender Day, and all schools were going to be having programs and stuff like this. You know, I never saw a program about National Lesbian Day or National Women's Veterans Day, okay? They're forcing their ideology on people, and they're grooming children. And I think that's so offensive. You know, common sense. Where is it going to?
Question for the audience, does anybody else know any like young girls who, yeah.
I can speak to that. There's a growing detransitioning movement, and that is a movement of primarily girls and young women who have done body harm, such as getting their healthy breasts removed because they identify as trans, and that's part of the identity. It's a medical identity, and they definitely feel like victims. These girls have also shot up with testosterone, a synthetic cross-sex hormone, and that's caused a lot of damage to their bodies, and they're beginning to speak out against it.
I might also like to point out that in my statement that I gave you, Fourth Wave Now and Kelsey Foundation deal particularly with parents who have children who think they might be trans. To be very blunt, there is no known psychiatric or psychological condition for which lopping off body parts is considered to be a cure. If you look at the statistics of people who wish they hadn't done what they had done to their bodies and who want to detransition, you may find that it's growing. So-called sex reassignment surgery oftentimes does not alleviate the problem a person may have with his or her identity. I thought you were referring to just the school district here. I didn't realize you meant across the board. And if you want, I can send you pictures of what these surgeries look like. The Joseph Mengele School of Sex Reassignment Surgery. I can say that because I'm a Jew. It's horrible. It's absolutely, it's show up. It's an abomination.
I'd like to speak to it too. I grew up in a patriarchal part of the religious right wing. I was taught to submit to men, that this was my religious role as a woman. At 9 years old, I could tell you, yes, my job is to submit to men. Children are impressionable. They can be told that this is the right way to do something, and they see the adults around them doing it, and they absorb that, and they say, this is the way the world is, and I guess this is my place in it, and this is my job, this is my gender. They'll look and see who's got a gender identity that speaks to them, but when you're so young, you're going to only emulate what tends to have power. This is a male-driven movement, so males are driving what has power here, and that is to just flip the switch and script on all of this. Children should not really be looked to for answering the question, what do you think about transgender ideology? This is a recent move. This is something the adults need to be dealing with, not the children.
Thank you. Yeah, those are all the questions that I have.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you for listening to us.
I'm surprised there weren't more people here because this is a hot issue.
It is, it sure is.
I mean, it's been all over the place. When I talked with Thistle and we agreed to try to set this up.
Hey, can we just stand in front of here for a second?
I sent out like almost 100 press releases twice.
Can you see us in the?
Because I've been seeing it all over the place, and it's like
Their t-shirts.
I didn't see
Hi,
anybody standing up and
WLRN
doing something
listeners. Can you see us?
And I know some
Our heads
people
aren't chopped off.
fearful.
You're
I know
both
Thistle
in
was
it.
All right,
scared.
Emily, you want to just come and
Scared.
say
You know
goodbye to
what?
our listeners?
Yes.
There's like
I
17
don't
people
fear
watching
anything.
right now.
Thank you for
All right,
watching.
thank you for
Thank you.
watching. All right.
Appreciate it.
I can
Thanks.
deal with that because I'm a vet. You know, it's like you either take a stand for what is correct and right.